all organisms are made up of cells. These cells group together to form a tissue, and the tissues group together to form an organ, and the organ groups together to form an organ system. Acoelomate means those which do not have a body cavity. Say it is platyhelminths. So platyhelminths, that is the flatworms, they do not have body cavities. All the sponges, group of organisms which are called sponges, are put under porifera and they are a non-chordate. Hello everyone, a warm welcome to this session on revision class for first PUC Biology. I'm Dr. Divya, Biology Faculty, Vidhyaashram Pre-University College, Temple of Excellence, Mysuru. So in this session, we'll learn about the animal kingdom, that is some of the important MCQs and some of the important questions that can be asked from this particular chapter. So in this session, we will be talking about the synopsis, that is overall what is there in the chapter, and whatever is discussed in the synopsis that can come for MCQs also, which have not put in there as separate questions, because there itself you can understand. And next we'll go on to learning some of the important multiple choice questions that can be framed from this particular chapter. And this chapter consists of, that is a 3-mark question, that is one 3-mark question, and one 5-mark question will also be asked from this particular chapter. So 5 marks along with some of the MCQs, I have written it for the session 2 of revision class of the same chapter. So you can have a look into that. In this session, we'll be dealing about few of the MCQs and the important 3-mark questions which are important in exam point of view. So talking about the synopsis, so this chapter deals with kingdom Animalia. So the other kingdoms we had studied, that is kingdom Plantae, we studied in the 3rd chapter, and the other 4 kingdoms that was there, or other 3 kingdoms that is there, that is Monera, Protista and Fungi, we studied it in chapter 2, that is biological classification. The remaining that was there is animal kingdom, that is chapter 4. So animal kingdom, this also comes under Whittaker's system of classification, wherein he put the animals separately under kingdom Animalia. And based on what was the classification done? So classification was done based on the levels of organization, the body symmetry, the embryonal germ layers, the nature of the coelom, the segmentation and the notochord. So we'll study under this all these, that is classification or points used for classification, what are the different characteristics that were considered. So talking about levels of organization. So all organisms are made up of cells. These cells group together to form a tissue, and the tissues group together to form an organ, and the organ groups together to form an organ system. Now, some of the organisms, they show only cellular level of organization, wherein they can be only unicellular. So regarding unicellular, all the unicellular organisms, they don't come under the kingdom Animalia. But unicellular organisms come under kingdom Monera and Protista, right? Next, moving to tissue level of organization. Tissue level of organization, you can find them in kingdom Plantae and kingdom Fungi. And this organ level of organization, you can find them in kingdom Animalia. So based on whether they are even cellular or level of organization also, that is some of the organisms which are made up of cells, multicellular, for example, Porifera. That is phylum Porifera, wherein sponges are there, that comes under cellular level of organization. Tissue level of organization, Cnidaria, that is the coelenterates. So coelenterates, they exhibit tissue level of organization, that is the jellyfish, hydra, all that exhibits tissue level of organization. So under tissue level of organization, for example, Aurelia, that is jellyfish, they exhibit tissue level of organization. Next is organ level of organization, wherein we have platyhelminths. Platyhelminths are nothing but the flatworms. That is, in flatworms, we have Taenia, that is tapeworm, and liver fluke, planaria, all these comes under the flatworms, and Ctenophora. Ctenophora also exhibits organ system level of organization. So Ctenophora, that is, we have the comb jellies that we call. So they also, the sea walnuts that we call, they also exhibit organ system level, that is organ level of organization. Next, moving to organ system level of organization. Asculminths. So asculminths, that is the roundworms, then annelids, Annelids, we have leeches. They are usually parasites, leeches, then nerees, all that exhibits, earthworm, all that exhibits organ system level of organization. Arthropoda, that is all the insects, then mollusks, that is the seashells, that is those organisms having calcium shells on them. For example, octopus, then the oysters, all that exhibits organ system level of organization. Then echinodermata, those organisms which have spiny bodies, say for example the sea urchins. So they also come under organ system level of organization. Next, the chordates. Chordates, one of the best example is we human beings. So all the classes under chordates, that is the chondrichthyes, the osteichthyes, and the cyclostomata, aves, mammals, amphibians, all that exhibits, reptiles, all those exhibits the organ system level of organization. This was about the classification based on the levels of organization. Next, moving to body symmetry. Classification based on whether they have a symmetry or whether they do not have a symmetry. If they don't have a symmetry, it is called as asymmetrical. And if they have a symmetry, again under that, there are two types, radial symmetry and bilateral symmetry. So asymmetrical means those organisms which do not have segments at all in their body. Say for example, not segments. So symmetry means wherein one organism you cannot cut them into equal halves or radial halves. So that is what it means. Say for example, porifera. So if you look at the diagram of porifera, that is sponges, they somewhat look like this, and I draw a line at the center. Does one half look exactly similar to the other? No. Or somewhere radially also, if I try to cut also, they'll not look similar to one another, right? So that is why they are asymmetrical in nature. Therefore, porifera. Radial symmetry means exactly from the, it's like cutting a piece of cake. Exactly from the center, if I draw lines like this, all the halves that are there look exactly, all the pieces look exactly similar to one another. It's called radial symmetry. So such organisms are cnidarians, ctenophorans, and echinodermatas. Next is bilateral symmetry, wherein exactly one organism, if I draw a line at the center, one half looks similar to the other half. That is, the right half will look similar to the left half. It is like that. So platyhelminths, asculminths, annelids, mollusks, arthropoda, hemichordata, and chordates, all of these exhibit bilateral symmetry. Next, moving to the next basis of classification, that is embryonal germ layers. That is whether what type of germ layers are present, whether it is in 2 layers or whether it is in 3 layers. So if it is in 2 layers, it is diploblastic. If they are made up of 3 germ layers, then it is triploblastic or embryonal germ layers. That is, if the embryo is made up of 2 germ layers, you call it as diploblastic. And those organisms, you put them under one group, and those which exhibits triploblastic germ layers, you put them in one group. Say for example, here we have Cnidaria and Ctenophora. So Cnidaria and Ctenophoras, they are diploblastic in nature. Asculminths, platyhelminths, annelids, arthropods, mollusks, echinoderms, hemichordates, and chordates are all triploblastic in nature. That is, the embryos are triploblastic in nature. Then moving to nature of coelom. Coelom means body cavity, whether they have a body cavity or whether they're not. And if they have a body cavity, what kind of body cavity do they have? So acoelomate means those which do not have a body cavity. Say it is platyhelminths. So platyhelminths, that is the flatworms, they do not have body cavities. Your tinea, that is the tapeworm. Then the liver fluke, or it's also called as fasciola, all planaria, all that are acoelomate. They do not have a body cavity. Next is pseudocoelomate. Pseudocoelomate means they have a body cavity, but in the middle layer, wherever it is there, the mesoderm, the cells are not properly distributed. They're just scattered. And the body cavity at the center, that is the mesoderm, do not have the cells filled with it. So that is called as pseudocoelomate. Example, asculminths. One of the best examples, that is ascaris is one of the, or the roundworm is one of the best example. Next, coelomates. Coelomates meaning they have a proper body cavity wherein they have an ectoderm, a mesoderm, and an endoderm, and the mesoderm is completely filled with cells, not unlike the pseudocoelomate wherein they are filled with patches of cells. It's not like that. So examples, annelids, the mollusks, arthropods, echinoderms, hemichordates, and chordates, all that are coelomate in nature. Next, moving on to the segmentation, whether they have a segment or whether they don't have a segment. If they don't have a segment, then it is called as unsegmented. If they have a segment, we call it as segmented. Now under unsegmented poriferas, if you look at them, example the sponges, they do not have segments on the body. Cnidaria, that is the coelentrates. You look at the jellyfish and all that, do they have segments in their body? They do not. Next, ctenophoras also do not have segments on the body. Asculmens, mollusks, echinoderms, hemichordata, that is in hemichordata belanoglossus, if you look, they do not have segments on their body. Now, in segmented, there are two types, non-metameric and metameric. Metameric segmentation means wherein they have ring-like structures or segments in their body. It's like this. Say, for example, I take the example of an earthworm. They have ring-like segments in their body, and the organs that are there, they continue in all the segments. So that is called as metamerism. So there is a difference from being metameric and non-metameric. Non-metameric means segmentation is there, but they don't have repetition of organs in each of the segments. But in the case of metameric means segmentation is there along with the repetition of serial repetition of organs in each of the segment. So non-metameric means it is platyhelminths. Metameric means we have annelids, arthropods and chordata. So these are metameric. So next, moving on to the notochord. Notochord, it is absent or present. So if it is absent, we call it as non-chordates. So whatever apart from the chordates that is there, all the other organisms are non-chordates. That is, be it your porifera, the coelentrates, then we have coelentrates or cnidaria, then we have the ctenophora, then we have the platyhelminths, then it is the asculmens, the annelids, the arthropods, the mollusks, then the hemichordates. All these echinoderms, hemichordates, all these come under non-chordates because in them the chordate is absent. That is, they do not have a vertebral column at all. So it is under non-chordates. Next, under chordates, that is vertebral column or chordate is present. Under that, cyclostomata, that is all the vertebrates. Under vertebrates, different classes are there. That is cyclostomata, chondrichthyes, osteichthyes, amphibians, reptiles, aves and mammals. All these come under the chordates. So this is how classification is being done. Next, we'll move on to studying about what is there under each of these organisms. That is under phylum Porifera. So first, talking about phylum Porifera, they are the sponges. Say, for example, we have Cycon, which is Cypha, Spongilla, which is a freshwater sponge, Euspongia, which is a bath sponge. So, which is a freshwater sponge? That also MCQs can come. So, it is Spongilla. Spongilla is a freshwater sponge. Next, coelenterate. Coelenterate, we have Physalia, which is also called as Portuguese man of war. So, which is called as the Portuguese man of war. Like that also MCQs can be framed. Next, sea anemone, that is Adamsia. Then Penatula, that is also called as sea pen because it looks like a pen. Then Gorgonia, which is because it looks like a fan, it is also called as sea fan. Then this Meandrina, it looks like a brain. So, it is also called as a brain coral. Next, under Ctenophora, there is Pleurobrachia and Ctenophora. So, Ctenophora are the ones which exhibit bioluminescence. That is what they are also called as the sea walnuts. And that is one of bioluminescence. Luminescence is one of the peculiar characteristics of Ctenophora members. Next, moving further, there is platyhelminths. They are the completely flat worms. So, there is Taenia, that is tapeworm, and Fasciola, which is nothing but liver fluke. Next comes Asculmens. Asculmens meaning they are round in nature. Ascaris, roundworm. Wuchereria, that is filarial worm, and Ankylostoma, that is hookworm. Both of these are endoparasites, meaning they live inside the body of animals or human beings. Platyhelminths, this also can be endoparasites. Say, for example, liver fluke and Taenia are also endoparasites, wherein they live in the intestines of the human beings. Next, moving further, Annelida, there is Nereis. Nereis is one of the aquatic annelids, and the presence of parapodia is one of the important characteristics of this organism, that is Nereis. Next comes Ferretima, which is earthworm, and next comes Hirudinaria, that is the blood-sucking leech. These are ectoparasites because Hirudinaria, they don't enter into the body. Leeches, they don't enter into the body. They stay on the body and feed on the blood or suck on the blood of the organism, whichever they are feeding on. So that is why they are ectoparasites. Next, moving further, There is Arthropoda. Arthropoda is the largest phylum because all the insects come under the Arthropoda. And don't think that, for example, under Arthropoda, even prawns also come under Arthropoda. So prawns are put under Arthropoda because now you might get confused. Prawn is a sea creature. Why did they put it under Arthropoda? It is because prawns like Arthropoda means they have jointed appendages and they have an crustaceous exoskeleton. So both of it is also present in prawn, whereas other fishes, no, they don't have appendages. What do fishes have? They have fins, right? But these prawns, they don't have fins. Instead, they have appendages, jointed appendages. So that is the reason why they have put under Arthropoda. So in Arthropoda, there are some of the organisms which are economically important to humans. There are some which causes diseases in humans. Say for example, or there are some which are parasitic, or they are gregarious pest which infects crops and all that, and some which are living fossils also, which can be used for studying evolutionary and evolution and all that. Next, economically important arthropods are Apis, Bombyx and Lassifer. Apis is honeybee, Bombyx is silkworm, Lassifer is the lac insect. And parasitic arthropods are the ones which are pathogenic and cause diseases are Anopheles, these are mosquitoes, Culex and Aedes mosquitoes. Next, locust, they are the pest which infects crops. They come in large swarms and they completely destroy the crop fields. And king crab, Limulus, they are large crabs which can be used for evolutionary studies because they are believed to be right from the age-old era. So that is why. Next is mollusca. Mollusca, all the organisms which have shells on their body. For example, Pila, that is apple snail, pink tada, pearl oyster, sepia cuttlefish, loligo, which is squid, octopus, devilfish, and Aplysia, it is sea hare, Dentalium, it is tusk shell, Chaetophora, it is chiton. So all of these are also aquatic in nature, that is usually marine habitat. And freshwater also, because oysters can be in freshwater as well. So these are marine that is aquatic in habitat. Next, echinodermata. Echinodermata means their bodies are made up of spines. Large, long spines will be there. For example, starfish, asterias, echinus, sea urchin, then antodon, sea lily, then sea cucumber, then brittle star. So these local names are also important, or common names are also important, because based on that also MCQs can be asked. Sea pen, what is it? What is another name for sea pen? Or scientifically what brittle star is called? Scientifically what starfish is called? Like that also MCQs can be framed. So that is why. Next, hemichordata. Hemichordata peculiar. Why? Because hemichordatas were earlier put under chordates itself, but later on they took them out from chordates and put them under a separate phylum under non-chordates. Why? Because earlier they thought that in hemichordata they have a structure which is called a stomochord, and that stomochord almost looked like a chordate or a vertebral column or a backbone. So that is why they thought that, okay, hemichordates also have a backbone, and they put it under chordate. Later on they separately took it out. They got to know that no, that's wrong. They separately took it out and put it under hemichordate, that is belanoglossus and saccoglossus. So these belanoglossus and saccoglossus, they do not have a backbone, but instead they have a structure which looks like a backbone, and that is called as the stomochord. So that's about hemichordata. Moving further, phylum chordata. So far we studied about non-chordates, under that the different phylums. Now it is phylum chordata. Under phylum chordata there is urochordata, cephalochordata and vertebrata. Urochordata, notochord is present. There is a difference. Why I have written it here itself is because based on this also MCQs can be asked. So that is why. Urochordata, notochord is present, but where it is present? Only in the larval stage. Tail. Once it becomes an adult, it will just vanish off. So that is why. Example, Accidia, Salpa and Doliolium. Next, cephalochordata, notochord is present, but it extends from the head to the tail, and it is persistent. That is, throughout the life of the organism, it is persistent. Example, Branchiostoma, it is also called as Amphioxus and Lancet. Next, under vertebrata, the notochords are present only in the embryonic stage. Once the embryo develops into a fetus, the notochord gets replaced by a vertebral column or a backbone. So these are the major difference between the urochordata, cephalochordata and the vertebrata. Now, under vertebrata, again it is divided into agnatha and gnathostomata. Agnatha, those without jaws; gnathostomata, those with jaws or bony teeth is present in them. So agnatha, we have cyclostomata, petromyzon, lamprey, that is hagfish, and these petromyzon, hagfish and all that, they do not have scales on their body and they do not have jaws also. Instead, their mouth looks like a sucker, wherein they go and stick on themselves on the body of other fishes, feeding on that fishes, eventually leading to the death of that particular fish. So that is what happens in cyclostomata. Next, under gnathostomata, we have Pisces and Tetrapoda. All the fishes are put under the Pisces. Again, under that, depending on how the scales are placed, whether they have placoid scales or whether they have ctenoid scales, whether they have air bladder, whether they do not have air bladder, based on all of that, they are classified into chondric thighs and ostick thighs. Under chondric thighs, we have the scoliodon, the pristis, the shark, stingray, all that comes under chondric thighs. Under ostick thighs, so apart from having different forms of scales and all that, they also have predatory or they have some defense mechanism, not predatory, defense mechanism in them, wherein stingrays and all, they have rail, that is sting-like structures at the tip of their tail, which helps in protecting itself from the predator. So all these are present in chondric thighs, but you don't get to find those in ostick thighs. Ostick thighs are exochetus. Then we have hippocampus, which is a seahorse, labio, cartla fish, clarias, betta. Betta is nothing but it's an aquarium fish, that is fighter fish. Then petrophyllum. So all these fishes come under ostick thighs. So these sharks, then stingrays, all that come under the chondric thighs. Next, moving to tetrapoda. Tetrapoda, the name itself says poda means feet. Those organisms which have 4 feet. Now, even aves are put under tetrapoda. Okay. But now you can ask me, aves don't have 4 feet. No, but 2 of their limbs are modified into wings. So that is why. But still, it is a mode of locomotion only, right? So that is why it's put under tetrapoda. Now, tetrapoda, again, it is class amphibia, reptilia, aves and mammals. So these are the different examples that are there. Under amphibia, those organisms which are capable of living both on land and water. So that is buffo, different forms of frogs. We have buffo, rana, then hyla, salamandra, ichthyophis. Ichthyophis is one of the amphibians which looks like a lizard. And next, reptilia. Under reptilia, that is reptilia, one of the peculiar feature is all the reptiles have a 3-chambered heart. Only crocodile, that is crocodilus, it has a 4-chambered heart. Next is aves. Aves, all the birds are put under aves. Next, mammals. Again here, all the mammals, that is those which are capable of giving birth to young ones. Again in mammals, there is one mammal which is called as ornithorhynchus, that is platypus. That is the only egg-laying mammal, but it is put under mammal because it has a mammary gland. It lays its egg, the egg hatches, young ones come out and they feed on the mother's milk. So that is why it's put under mammals. And rest all are the ones which directly give birth to young ones. And even bats are put under mammals only. Why? Because though it is a flying creature, it doesn't lay eggs like the birds, but it has its mammary glands, so they directly give birth to young ones. So that is why they've put it under mammals. So now we have an idea of what all is there in this chapter. So we'll move on to some of the important MCQs. So few of the MCQs are put there. In the next session, the MCQs are repeated again or continued. So it's continued in the next session. So in which type of circulatory system blood is pumped out of the heart and directly bathes the cells and tissues? So circulatory system is of 2 types. One is open type circulatory system and closed type circulatory system. So in open type circulatory system, what happens here is the blood, there is no veins or arteries and all that like how we have to carry blood to particular organ. It's just the blood is directly pushed out of the heart and all the organs are directly bathed in it. So it is open system of circulation. Next, in which type of system is blood circulated through a series of vessels of varying diameters? It is closed system. Next question, what is mesoglia? So what is mesoglia in the sense, in between the endoderm and the ectoderm, there is a middle layer which is called as the mesoderm. And in the mesoderm, the cells that are there are not properly distributed, but it is scattered. So that is nothing but mesoglia. So it is nothing but the undifferentiated layer between ectoderm and endoderm. We call it as the mesoglia. Now, fourth question, which layer is absent in diploblastic animals? So, diploblastic animals have an ectoderm and an endoderm, but they do not have a mesoderm. So, it is mesoderm. Next question, what is the term for animals in which the body cavity is absent? So, we call them as acoelomates. If the body cavity is present, we call them as coelomates. Next question, what is the name of the phylum of the animals commonly known as sponges? So, what is the name given to what is the name of the phylum which is given to sponges? So, is it Porifera, Cnidaria, Platyhelminths, Nematode? It is Porifera. So, all the sponges, group of organisms which are called sponges, are put under Porifera and they are a non-chordate. Next question, how does water enter sponges? So, sponges, do water enter through the mouth, through the anus, through the ostia, or through the osculum? So, ostia are nothing but minute pores. So, ostia are nothing but minute pores which are present in the body of sponges, and it is through these ostia or the minute pores the water enters into the sponges. Now, osculum, it is the mouth of the sponge through which the water goes out. Don't get confused. Water enters into the sponges through minute pores called as ostia, and water leaves the sponge through a canal system, and that canal system ends in an opening which is called as osculum, and through the osculum the water goes out. Okay. Now, if the question is how does the water leave the sponges or go out of the sponges, it is through the osculum is the answer. But here what is the question? How does water enter the sponges? So, the answer is through the ostia. Next question, what lines the spongocoel and canals in the sponges? Is it blood vessels? Is it epithelial cells, choanocytes or collar cells? Is it muscle cells? It is choanocytes or collar cells. So, the canal system. So, once the water enters through the ostia into the sponge, inside the body of the sponge, they have a canal system, and inside the canal system, it is lined by few cells which are called as collar cells or choanocytes, and from those cells, whatever is needed, absorption will take place, and the remaining water that is not needed will be expelled out through the osculum. Next question, what supports the body of sponges? Is it bones, cartilage, spicules or spongian fibers, muscles? It is spicules or spongian fibers, because sponges are not made up of bones or cartilage. Bones or cartilage starts from which? It starts from vertebrates. Sponges are non-chordates, that is invertebrates. So, it is spicules or spongian fibers. So, next question, what is the meaning of the term Cnidaria? Aquatic animals, animals with stinging capsules, radially symmetrical animals, marine animals. Animals with stinging capsules. So, cnidarians, which are also called as coelenterates, they have stinging capsules. Say for example, the best example I can take of is jellyfish. So, jellyfish, they have stinging capsules. So, whenever it comes in contact with a person or a predator, they feel a electric shock, or poison stings they have. So, cnidaria means animals with stinging capsules. So, moving to the next question, what is an example of a cnidaria with a cylindrical form? So, in cnidarians actually exhibit two body form. One is called as polyp and the other one is called as medusa. So, polyp, they are usually cylindrical and they are sessile. Sessile meaning they do not move from one place to another. They are fixed to a place. Medusa are umbrella shaped, and they are motile, meaning they move from one, or they are free swimming, they move from one place to another. So, what is an example of a cnidaria with cylindrical form? So, it is hydra. Hydra is the answer. One more example is there for a cnidaria with cylindrical form. It is Adamsia. So, if Adamsia is given as the option, you can choose Adamsia. Next question, what is an example of a cnidaria with an umbrella-shaped free swimming form? So, what is an umbrella-shaped free swimming form called? It's called Medusa body shape. Under that, the answer here is Aurelia. We can choose Aurelia, so which is also called as jellyfish. So, this is about this question. Next question. What is the type of skeleton found in some cnidarians like corals? It is cartilage, bone, calcium carbonate, none of them. I told you invertebrates are not made up of cartilages or bones. So therefore here the answer is calcium coral. That is calcium carbonate is the answer. So the type of skeleton found in some cnidarians like corals is calcium carbonate. Next, what are cnidoblasts used for in cnidarians? So cnidoblasts are nothing but they are some stinging capsules which are used by the cnidarians for defense, for capturing prey, and not just that, if some of the cnidarians, when they are in the polyp form, they have to cling on to one particular substratum. That is for anchorage also it helps. So therefore, all the above is the right answer here for defense, capturing prey, and for anchorage. Next question. What is another name for ctenophores? So ctenophores, what is another name? Ctenophora. It is called as sea walnuts. Sea urchin, sea anemones and all come under a different group. Jellyfish also under a different group. For this, it is sea walnut. So jellyfish, Aurelia, it is ctenophora. So your sea urchins and all that, or sea anemone, it comes under the echinoderms. So that is. So what is another name for ctenophores? It is also called as sea walnut because it looks like a walnut. So that is why. How many rows of ciliated comb plates do ctenophores have? So they have totally 8 rows of ciliated comb plates. And this is one of the peculiar characteristics of ctenophores. Next question. What do the comb plates help ctenophores do? Reproduce, breathe, locomote, digest. So it helps the ctenophores to locomote, that is, move from one place to another. Next, what is bioluminescence? So I told you ctenophores, one of the peculiar characteristic of them is bioluminescence, wherein they are capable of emitting light. So it is the property of a living organism to emit light. So option A is the right answer here. Next question. What is the phylum name of animals with dorso-ventrally flattened body? Meaning their upper side and lower side both are flat. It is platyhelminth. Flat. Remember like that. It is platyhelminth. Next, what are flatworms mostly? Flatworms are mostly endoparasites, meaning they live inside the body of the organism. Next question. What type of cells help in osmoregulation and excretion in flatworms? This is one of the very, very important MCQs. So it is flame cells. So flame cells, they help the flatworms in osmoregulation as well as in excretion. Next, which flatworm possesses high regeneration capacity? Regeneration capacity means how many of our pieces they are cut into. Each piece develops into a new organism or they regenerate. So it is Planaria. Planaria is the answer. This is also one of the important MCQs. Next question. Which phylum does the roundworm belong to? This also is important. It is Ascalminths. Next question. So how is the body surface of Annelida animals marked out? So does it have asymmetrical marks, radial marks, metamers or segment, spherical marks? It is metamers or segment. And give an example for metameric annelid. It is earthworm, that is leech, all that is an example. Next question. What is the function of nephridia in Annelida animals? Osmoregulation and excretion, locomotion, feeding and respiration. So nephridia, like how we have kidney, same way they have an excretory organ called nephridia. So it is osmoregulation and excretion. Next question. What type of muscles do Annelida animals possess that help in locomotion? So Annelida animals, they move like this. That is, they contract and relax the muscles for moving. So for contraction and relaxation, their body should look like a spring. So they are made up of what type of muscles? Circular muscles. So it is longitudinal and circular muscles is the right answer here. Next question. Parapodia are present in. Parapodia are feet-like structures which help the nereis to swim in water. So it is nereis. Ferretima is earthworm. Hirudinaria is the leech. Ascaris is roundworm. So all of these, nereis, ferretima and hirudinaria, all of these come under annelids. But in that, only nereis, which is aquatic, it needs to swim in water and move swiftly. So therefore, parapodia is present in nereis. Whereas ferretima and hirudinaria, they don't have parapodia. Instead, they have longitudinal and circular muscles for locomotion. Next question. Which of the following is the largest phylum of Animalia? This is also one important question. This is also important. It is Arthropoda, that is insects. Next, what is the body? Which is the second largest phylum? It is mollusks. So remember that. Next question. What is the body of arthropods covered by hair, scales, fur, chitinous skeleton? So arthropods, they have chitinous skeleton, and arthropods, they have jointed appendages. So that is also very important. Next, how do arthropods excrete waste? Through lungs, through skin, through kidneys, through malphizian tubules. So they don't have kidneys, instead they have malphizian tubules through which the waste is excreted. So till here we have studied about the MCQs. So we have stopped with arthropods. So next, from arthropods, whatever phylum is there, we'll study that. MCQs regarding that we'll study in the next session. So in this session, we'll continue with 3 marks question and answer. There is also 5 marks question and answer which is asked from this chapter. That will move on to we'll study that also in the next coming session. 3 marks question and answer. List out 8 important characteristic features of phylum Porifera. So these are the following important characteristics. It is just very simple. You don't have to write them in long sentences. Just write what are the characteristics and point wise it is enough. They are marine and symmetrical. They are primitive and they are multicellular. Primitive means they are the first formed invertebrates. So that is what it means. Next, they have cellular level of organization, canal system of water transport, which you don't find in any of the other organism. And they have a central cavity which is called as spongiocele. Cele means cavity. And the body, throughout the body, they have small pores which is called as ostia. So you can write presence of ostia. Next is they have the ostia, or they have a canal system which is called as that is canal system, and that canal system is lined by specialized cells which are called as choanocytes or collar cells. So that is one point. Next, they have a skeletal system, and the skeletal system are nothing but made up of spicules or spongin fibers. That is also one of the point. So many, and you can write the water enters through the ostia, and through the there is an opening called as operculum through which the water leaves out of the body. So that is also one point you can include. So point wise you write like this, easily 3 marks you will get. Moving further, enumerate the salient features of phylum Coelenterata. So these are the salient features. They are aquatic, they can be marine, they can be free swimming, or they can be sessile. Why? Because if they are free swimming, they are in medusa form. If they are sessile, they are in polyp form. So that is one of the important characteristic. Next, they are radially symmetrical and they have nidoblast. Nidoblast, this is one important characteristic of coelenterate. And they have tissue level of organization and are diploblastic. And they exhibit 2 body forms, that is polyp and medusa. So 3 marks, so much if you write it is enough. Next question. List out the general characteristics of ctenophora. So ctenophores, they are marine, radially symmetrical, diploblastic with tissue level of organization, and they are commonly called as sea walnuts, or they are also called as comb jellies, because they have 8 rows of ciliated comb plates in them. That also you can split and write it in a separate point. And they exhibit, this is one of the very important characteristic, bioluminescence, because no other organism does that. And here the sexes are not separate, meaning they are monoecious, and they have that is sexual method of reproduction with external fertilization and internal indirect development. So you have to write about their bioluminescence, what are they also called, and they have 8 rows of ciliated comb plates, and the ciliated comb plates help them in locomotion, and they are radially symmetrical. All that if you write it is enough. That is general characteristics is what they have asked for. Next question. Mention the general characters of phylum Platyhelminths. So Platyhelminths, one of the main characteristics, dorso-ventrally flattened body, meaning the upper and lower side of the body is completely flat, and they are endoparasite, meaning they live inside the body of animals and humans. They are bilaterally symmetrical. They are triploblastic and acoelomate. Triploblastic, acoelomate and all, if you don't write also it is fine, because there are other characteristics which you can write here. So that is why. Say for example, they have specialized cells called flame cells for excretion and osmoregulation. And the development is indirect because they have many larval stages, and they have high regeneration capacity. That is one of the important characteristics of the phylum Platyhelminths. Next, moving further, write any 4 distinct features of Aschelminths. So Aschelminths, they have circular body, that is round shaped body, and they are also free living. They are parasitic in nature, and they are triploblastic. They have organ level of body organization. They are triploblastic, bilaterally symmetrical. They are pseudocoelomate, that is without body cavity, and they have a muscular pharynx through which the food passes and leaves out of the body, and they have a well developed excretory system which separate sexes. That is, the sexes are separate. They are dioecious, and you can easily differentiate between the male and the female. The males are shorter and the females are longer. So that is how you can differentiate them. So these characteristics you need to write. Any 4, if you write it, is enough. Next, list out the 8 important features of Annelida. Here they have, or they can list out any 6 important features of Annelida. Here I have put extra. So they have ring-like body. That is one of the characteristic feature. They are aquatic, free-living, and some are parasitic. And that is usually they are ectoparasites. And they have organ system level of organization, and metameric segmentation is one of the important points that you have to write here. And they have the body, entire body is made up of longitudinal and circular muscles, and that helps in locomotion. And especially you can also include about parapodia here. That is, nereis, they have feet which is called as parapodia, which helps it to swim in water. And heart circulation is of closed type, and their excretory structure is nephridia, which is important. And they have a well developed nervous system with ganglion, that is double nerve cord, and with lateral nerves. And sexual reproduction is seen in these. So much if you write, you will get 3 marks. Next, write the general characters of phylum Arthropoda. Arthropod, they are the largest phylum, and they have jointed appendages. That is important. And the body is distinguished into head, thorax, and abdomen, because in other phylums under invertebrate, you do not have this point. Next, they have a well-developed respiratory system. That is, they have respiratory organs like gills, book lungs, and also they have a tracheal system. The circulation is open circulation, and they have compound and simple eye as well. So compound eye, say for example honeybees, they have a compound eye, and some of the insects have a simple eye as well. And excretion is through Malpighian tubules. This is important. And development is direct or indirect, because some of them they develop directly. Some of them, for example butterflies, they have indirect development, that is they have a larval stage and all that. But some of the insects, they develop directly, and they are economically important. So these are some of the general characteristics of phylum Arthropoda. And you can write about their exoskeleton, which is made up of chitin. They have a chitinaceous exoskeleton. That point also you can include it under this. Next point, next question. Mention the general features of phylum Mollusca. Mollusca, they are the second largest in the animal kingdom. They can be terrestrial or aquatic. Aquatic, octopus and pearl oysters and all that are aquatic. The snails and all that are terrestrial. And they are bilaterally symmetrical. So bilaterally symmetrical, it is easy to write. You just imagine an octopus, just draw a line in the center, you can cut it into equal halves, right? Snail also, you can cut it into equal halves. So that is how, if you know the animal well, then you can write it. Next, they are triploblastic in nature. The body is coelomate, and the body is covered by a shell. That is calcareous shell will be there. Body is unsegmented, they do not have segment, and the body can be differentiated into a head, foot, and visceral hump. Visceral hump is very important here, or they have a mantle. Mantle is present, and the visceral hump is covered with a mantle, and it has a mantle cavity, and in the they have a mouth which is called as radula. In the mouth there is a rasping organ to hold on to the prey and all that. That is called as radula. And they are oviparous, that is they lay eggs, and they have sensory tentacles. So, and they have tube feet, all that also you can include. So these are some of the general characteristics. So general characteristic, if they ask, no, you can write generally, but if they ask peculiar characteristic, means you have to mention about visceral hump, you have to mention about radula, you have to mention about sensory tentacles, then you have to mention about the body is covered by calcareous shell, because all that are peculiar characteristic. So based on how the question is framed, you can write the answer. Next one. Enumerate the special features of phylum Echinodermata. Echinoderms means those which have spiny body, and they also are made up of ossicles which are calcareous in nature, and they are exclusively marine, and they have a complete digestive system. So exclusively marine means most of them are marine only. You don't find them in fresh water. And presence of water vascular system, say for example in starfish and all that, they have a proper channel for the movement of water to all the arms of the starfish, so which you don't find it in other organisms. So this is one of the peculiar characteristic. And they don't have special excretory structure. So sexes are separate with sexual reproduction and external fertilization will take place. Development is also external or indirect. Indirect development with larvae, wherein the larvae are free swimming. So this, and they have spines on their body. So yeah, that is already mentioned. So these are some of the characteristics of echinodermata. So six points if you write also, it is enough because it is a 3-mark question wherein each point will carry half mark each. Next, list out the characters of phylum Hemichordata. Hemichordata, they have a worm-like body, they are marine and they have organ level of organization, and the body is composed of proboscis. It is divided into proboscis, collar and long trunk. And the sexes are separate. The fertilization is external, development is indirect, respiration is through gills, and they have excretory organ which is in the form of proboscis gland, and they have an open type of circulation. And you can also write they have a backbone, they have stomochord, and they have a trunk, that is they have a trunk wherein, or the proboscis that is there, that actually helps it to, or the head part of the balanoglossus or hemichordata that is there, it helps it to bury itself in the sand, in the ocean. So that is also one important point that you can include here. So proboscis and proboscis gland is different. Okay, proboscis is the head part. Proboscis gland is an excretory organ that is present in the trunk region. So that both are different, don't get confused. So stomochord also you can include as a point. So this is about this particular session wherein we learned some of the important MCQs, and also we learned some of the important 3-mark question that can come from this particular chapter. So the session will continue wherein in session 2 of this particular chapter's revision, we will study about some of the other MCQs along with 5-mark questions. So I hope you understood this session well. See you in the next session wherein we'll study the remaining part of this particular chapter. So see you in the next session. Thank you.